Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go. Hello, Enchilada Nation. Thank you for joining me today for this solo cast. Excited to talk to you about something that's been on my mind over the last several weeks. It's actually interesting to me. I've had a couple kind of cruddy things happen over the last several weeks. And it's interesting to me, it came to mind that people are constantly talking about how bad things happen in groups of three. You've probably seen this in the news, you've seen it in articles you've read, but people tend to group these bad things happening in three. Even to the point when something bad happens in your world, think about this from a condolence standpoint. Someone comes up to you and says, oh, well, if that bad thing happened to you, watch out for the next thing because you know it's right around the corner. What a horrible way to console somebody that just had something bad happen in their life, or a pattern of things to tell them, watch out for that last thing. Or if three bad things happened, that's when they come into consolation saying, well, they're grouped in three. Things will probably start to turn for you. Well, interestingly enough, recently I've had three kind of cruddy things happen to me personally. And it's easy when it's happening to you to kind of fall into that victim mentality. So it's interesting to me, a few weeks ago, I had one of my key employees decide to quit, pursue another opportunity. And this was an employee that I was excited about. I had made an investment in and left a hole within my organization. Immediately following that, I happened to get hurt in a jiu-jitsu match and had to go in for knee surgery. And I'm out with my ability to train jiu-jitsu and martial arts for several months. And then on top of that, while I was waiting to go into surgery, my daughter actually got COVID-19, forcing my family into quarantine, which actually inhibited my ability to tackle my other two problems that were facing me at that time. So it got me thinking about this idea of, where did this idea come from that we think these bad things happen in three? Now, we have this innate ability to create patterns within things. This is actually a good thing. It's one of the things that sets us apart as human beings, as opposed to every other species on the planet. The ability for mentally healthy people to identify and exploit patterns in nature is giving us a tremendous evolutionary advantage. Think about, from an engineering and a science standpoint, all that is people finding patterns within things and finding solutions, or what those patterns can teach us. The interesting thing is why three? There are threes everywhere. Think about, the Holy Trinity comes in three, the story of the three little pigs, Goldilocks and the three bears. For some reason, we tend to find this number of three really easy to find patterns with, but there's really no historical basis behind why three. But what really we need to be focusing on here is that bad things happen all the time, but so do good things. In fact, I would say if we were constantly measuring and keeping a column of good and bad, I think based on your confirmation bias, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, would depend on whether you would have a longer list of things in your good column or a longer list in your bad column. So what is this confirmation bias? Confirmation bias is a person's tendency to favor information that confirms their assumptions, preconceptions, or hypotheses, whether they are actually or independently true or not. Think about this. How many times are you in a conversation with someone where they are so convinced of their perspective that they're not even willing to listen to your perspective, and you feel emotionally convicted to your opposing view as they do to theirs? This happens all the time. In fact, in that scenario, either party could go to Google and do a search and immediately find articles, testimonials, and people that would confirm their confirmation bias. So the question becomes, if we want to break a pattern of finding things bad happening in our world, we have to change our confirmation bias first. This goes back to the idea of thinking through, what is that victim mentality versus accountability mentality? That we all know that person that is constantly living in that victim mentality of, things are going bad, these things happen to me, I can't catch a break, as opposed to that other person that holds themselves accountable to, I control my destiny, I get to do something about this. Now, just because someone's accountable and a positive person doesn't mean that bad things can happen to them. I truly believe that these three challenges that I'm facing right now aren't because I was seeking them from a victim mentality. They happened to me regardless of whether I was an accountable person or coming from a victim mentality. They happened because they happened. The question is what am I going to do around it? And am I going to let those bad things overpower all the positive, wonderful things that are going on in my life right now? A lot of you have probably heard Tony Robbins say, what if life was not happening to you? It was happening for you. I really love that statement. What if life was not happening to you? It was happening for you. It would be really easy. I think people fall into the trap all the time of, man, this is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? Why is God doing this? When in reality, the flip here is thinking, what is the lesson that I should be learning because of what I'm facing right now? So there's a couple things that I think would be interesting to talk about real briefly is how do we bring the perspective to the table of, instead of getting caught in that victim mentality of what is the lesson for me to learn from this happening? We can't change that it happened, but we can change how we approach it moving forward. So number one is anytime you're feeling that overwhelm and finding yourself climbing into that victim mentality, I would encourage you to ask the question, what lesson is there for me to learn from what's going on right now? Sometimes patterns have to be completely disrupted to get a new perspective. And that is the lesson that I've taken away from this is as many of you know, and a lot of you in the network find yourself in the same category, we have a lot of responsibility and a lot of things going on. We've become masters of our calendar and have a very specific cadence to our day where we apply ourselves to those specific goals, whether they're in business, in life, in fitness, whatever those are. We tend to find this pattern that we live in. Well, a lot of times when we get that pattern, it creates a cadence that creates this momentum for us, which is a positive thing until it's not. Are there other things going on in our world that we're so committed to that pattern that we've created for ourselves that we're not seeing those other things that may be important or something suffering in our world? So one of the things that has happened for me with this pattern disruptor, with these things happening in my world, it's actually forced me to break my pattern, not a little bit, not changing one or two things on my calendar, but completely removing myself from that pattern and that flow and having to re-look at that, which has helped me gain a new perspective, not across the board, but in specific areas that needed some additional attention in my world. And I'm grateful. If I didn't have that pattern disrupt with what's going on in my world, I may not have gained that new perspective. There's a traditional Buddhist prayer that says, may whatever arises serve the awakening of wisdom and compassion. And I love that approach, that just to say, whatever happens, there's so many things in our world that we can't control. And we talk a lot about that within this group of what can we control? What can we own to make our world and our lives the world that we want? How do we design that end game that we're looking to do? And in addition to doing all those things we can control, there are certainly never going to be a perfect elimination of things outside of our control. What we can control around those is how do we react to that? And I would encourage you not to look for the pattern of threes of things going bad in your world, but look for the pattern of positivity. What are those positive things that are happening in your world? And in the event that you come across an obstacle or challenge, what is the lesson that is there for you? What is a new perspective you need to bring to the table that is actually going to catapult you to that next level? So for any of you that have reached out to me and checked on me in this time, I appreciate that. Hope this message connected with you. Don't forget, as part of the Whole Enchilada network, I want you to go out there and live life on your terms. Thanks so much. Make it a great day.